Greetings, this is Module 5 Video 7. In this video we're going to build our exercise program class. So first of all let's just create the class along with a test harness. Now what we need from an exercise program is basically a name, a duration, the exercises in it, and the ability to execute it. So there we go, that's the public API I'm thinking. So let's write some tests around the simple stuff to start with. Right, here's some simple tests as a starting point, just to make sure our constructor throws when it's given null for a name or its exercises, and also make sure that the properties, the name and exercises properties return what they're supposed to return. Now this implies we need a constructor that takes a name and the exercises. Okay, I need to add immutable collections to my test project. There we go, all failing. So let's fill this in. And I've realized I've got another case here I didn't test for, which is one of the exercises in the list of exercises being null, which we also should not allow. Okay, let's try those tests. Got a compile error here. Missing a bracket. Okay, all passing. Let's move on to duration. And remember, with the exercise model, the duration was the sum of all the action durations. With the exercise program model, the duration would be the sum of all the exercise durations. So let's write some tests around that. And by the way, I wrote this little supporting member here, supporting method, to save us the hassle of having to create exercises the long, laborious way. We're going to make use of this as we go along with this test suite, and it's going to get more complicated when we need it to actually execute some actions, which will be the case here. So, but I'm not sure how it's going to look yet. I'm just going to see how it pans out. Okay, so just to explain this create exercise method a bit more. You've seen I've just fleshed this out a bit. So what it does now is it takes an optional action which will execute before the exercise. So if we get that action, then I create a mock matcher which matches on the before exercise event, and then I, associate that that action with the matcher, and then I pass that in when I'm creating the exercise. I don't think we're going to need anything more complicated than that. Remember, at this point we're testing ExerciseProgram, not exercise. So it's just as long as we've got something that inside our exercise that we can trigger, and we can see the effects of that in the exercise's duration. That's really what we care about here. So we don't need to cover all different cases of different events in this logic here. We just need something deterministic that we can use. So now when I'm testing the duration, here's the sum of all the exercise durations. I can create an exercise, give it the action to execute when the exercise is started. The action I've created here, I'll probably create a couple of actions. This one's 1 second, and maybe I'll create one that is longer than that, and then I can check the duration afterwards accordingly. Okay, so because I've got 3 exercises, 2 of which are just associated with action 1, which is a 1 second action, and the second one's associated with action 2, which is a 10 second action, so we're expecting 10 plus 2 seconds of duration, so that's what I'm checking here. Alright, so let's make sure that fails. Okay, we're only getting the 1 failure because I'm actually returning 0 from the duration property. So the first test is, this one here is succeeding. So let's do the implementation now. Again, we can just store this as a read-only property, read-only field. Okay, there we go, all tests passing. Taking a similar approach to what I did in the exercise model. So I'm just taking all the exercises, grabbing the duration from the exercise, defaulting if empty so that if there's no exercises we still get 0, and then aggregating those together. So that's cool, that's duration done. So the only thing left here to worry about is execution. So let's write some tests for that. So here we make sure that the actions that have been associated with the exercises are executed, because that's our only real way to know that the exercise itself was executed. So that's what these verification calls are after we await the execution of the exercise program. We need to similarly test the skip ahead functionality for exercise program as well. Okay, so here we've got three actions. The first takes 13 seconds, second takes 10, and the third takes 5. So if we skip over 23 seconds, that should skip the first two actions. So that's what we're verifying here. And I've just realized that I should have mock behavior.loose here, because otherwise any action where we haven't set up a execute async expectation will fail, and we don't particularly care to set that up unless we need to, and I think the same is true up here. Yeah. Okay, so let's try those tests. Two failures as expected. So the implementation then. Oops, we're missing a test. Again, I missed the same test as I did last time. We need to make sure that the context is not null. Like that. So firstly, let's validate the context. And then we can loop over our exercises and skip ahead as necessary, or execute them as necessary. So this is very similar code to what we had in the exercise model. So we're checking whether the skip ahead in the context is greater than 0. And if it is, and it's greater than the duration of the current exercise, then we just completely skip that exercise. Otherwise, we pass through to the execution of that exercise. Now that means if you've skipped part way through an exercise, it won't skip completely over it, but it will still pass on the outstanding skip ahead into the execution of the exercise. So then that exercise would kind of recursively do its skip ahead logic to skip to the appropriate action within the exercise. And then there might still be outstanding skip ahead, so that action can itself skip to some point in its execution. So let's try the tests. And we're all good. So that's it for the exercise program. Much simpler than the previous model class, of course. And the next one, the exercise programs model, will be even simpler still. But I will catch you in the next video. Cheers.